episode 141, IRONMAN Mont with Richie Szeliga. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in it for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the pursuit of the perfect race. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Richie Szeliga about his recent race experience at IRONMAN Mont, where he had a time of 10 hours, 13 minutes, 12 seconds. Richie came on the show earlier this year and talked about the Boston Marathon that he ran in the rain in preparation for this race, which was his first Ironman. I've had the pleasure and opportunity of coaching Richie and working with him over the previous 8 months. This race took place on August 19th, 2018, with the temperature on race day being 61 and rising to 81, and the swim delayed by an hour due to fog and 15-minute increments, with the water being 71.4 degrees. Welcome back to the show, Richie. I look forward to hearing about your race experience at IRONMAN Mont.
Thanks for having me back.
Hey, you're welcome, man. So we talked about doing this race for a long time. So what was it like to actually get into the taper and go into this?
I was anxious for a long time. 8 months or 7.5 months of solid training. Finally all came to a head 2 weeks ago at this race. I was looking forward to tapering, back down the training a bit and just get done with work and get up to Canada and start the whole experience.
Yeah. So I already know what all your training was like, but for everybody that doesn't know, we built up to some pretty solid days of training, and you only had one missed workout in the previous 8 months going into this race. So what did you think about the training going into this?
It was a little more than I initially expected. Some of those long days out in the heat in the middle of summer, not the easiest of days, but that's what I signed up for. I guess the 135-mile bike rides with a 14 or 15-mile run right after kind of caught me by surprise in the middle of New Jersey summer when it's 95 with 90% humidity. Other than the tough days, it was all about consistency. Been racing for years now, so the biggest thing for me is to not miss a workout. So that was big, just to stay on track and keep going toward the goal.
Right. Now, we did that 135-mile bike ride and 15-mile run twice, and we really just wanted to use that as a benchmark to find the bottom of your gas can before you got to Mont. Do you feel like we were successful there?
Oh, yes. We were definitely successful there, especially the first one. I got home from that bike ride, and I didn't want to do anything else for weeks after that, let alone go out a half hour later for a run. We definitely found the bottom of the gas can on that one.
Right. Now, going into this race, we had a few big workouts. What workouts do you really point to that say, yes, that workout gave me the confidence to go into this race?
Well, those 235-mile bike ride days, mainly just riding longer than the distance. For me, on those rides, I kind of started feeling the wheels come off after the 112. So it was usually in the last 20 miles of those long rides that it started to take a toll on my body, and I started getting fatigued and exhausted and things like that. So just knowing that I wasn't even going to come close to that distance in the race, the bike part was a huge confidence builder, knowing that I was still feeling good at 112, 115, and it wasn't until we hit like the 120 to 135 that I really started feeling it and was slowing down and very fatigued. As far as the run goes, I mean, we were very run heavy in the beginning just because of my schedule this year with Boston. So pulling off of having a solid run base in the beginning and then trying to maintain that and incorporate some of the long runs off of a shorter bike, I think those definitely built my confidence in the last few weeks. The hour bike ride on the trainer and then go out for a 15-mile run. I think those were the biggest confidence build in the run, where I could still go sub sevens for a majority of those long runs coming off the bike like that.
Right. Now, you had a little bit of issues with your foot on the swim portion at the pool, but it wasn't in open water. What happened there?
I'm honestly not really sure. I don't know if it's the way I kick off the wall or the way I kick without a wetsuit on, but seems like race day with a wetsuit and open water, no pain, no nothing, doing fast sprint sets or things like that in the pool with a lot of traffic in the pool seems to always aggravate the left ankle, left foot a little bit, but come race day, it hasn't been a problem.
Right. And when you say a lot of traffic, you're talking 5-6 people in the same lane as you.
Yeah, it's rare in New York City. At least the pool I go to, by the time I get out of work at 6 or 7, to get in the pool and not have between 3 and 6 people circling in a lane. So I believe out of the 7.5, 8 months, I believe I had 3 swims in that pool where I had an empty lane. Otherwise, it was, 3 to 6 people.
Okay. Now, what swim workouts did we do that gave you the confidence to go into this race, knowing that you could not only do the distance, but do the distance well?
Well, to be honest, I think it was the 100 repeats where we do 20, 30 of them with short rest. With that type of traffic in the pool, it was hard for us to do long 800,000 sets, because at the speed I was usually going at, I'm passing someone at almost every wall. You're trapped behind someone going slower, or you're in front of someone doing a sprint set going faster. So for me, the 100 is a really hard effort with a really short rest, and then just keep going. Set after set like that, I think gave me the most confidence. And our strategy going into the swim anyway was more of let's push a little bit, but more come out of the water as if we had a nice warm up, and not so much let's go out there and push with everything you got at the beginning of the day.
Right. So going into this race, we initially had an expectation of kind of what we wanted to get out of the race, and then we shifted probably about 2.5, 3 months out and got more realistic with things, and then we set another expectation going into the race, with more of a goal. What was that like?
So, being that this was my first ever full, I mean, long-term goal I've had and will always have is to make it to Kona. That's been a goal, will be a goal, and will be until I'm on that beach one day. It's the ultimate goal as far as our triathlon journey goes. But as far as the very first one, not really knowing what to expect. I had done 3 halves before, but making that jump from the half to the full, we kind of had to get realistic as the summer was starting and we were getting down to the last 2 months of training, saying, okay, let's be realistic and not ruin a good day on the very first one by pushing too hard on the swim and the bike and then ending up walking a marathon or half a marathon. So we kind of readjusted, became a little more realistic with not only a time goal, but kind of the feelings that we were going into it and how we wanted to feel off the swim, how we wanted to feel off the bike, and then kind of just reassess everything going to the run. So I think that realignment and resetting of the goals was a big thing for me going into the last 2 months of training.
Right. Now, knowing that this course was very hilly and you live in New York, how do you feel like we accomplished the training with the hills and the mountains that Mont Tremblant has versus what you have available for you?
So I actually think I found some really good rides out here that were fairly equivalent to what we saw up in Canada. Right, going from Hoboken up north into upstate New York into the Bear Mountain area. I saw a couple of the mile-long climbs. I got some of the big descents. We got some gradual climbs out on Route 9. So definitely a great training area for this race in particular, because I felt like some of the big climbs of the day, I could picture myself on some training rides going through exactly what I was going through on race day and thinking, okay, it's just this mile climb up Bear Mountain, and just transform that right into Canada. It was definitely a confidence builder, knowing that I've been doing it for months now.
Right. And also in early June, you went out to Mont Tremblant for a training weekend.
Yeah. Me and my uncle and one of his friends, we went up there beginning of June for a Friday, Saturday, Sunday trip. We rode the end of the bike course, the Duplessis climb on the Friday, and a short run Saturday. I did about a little over 1.5 laps of the bike, and then another short run. Water was still a little cold then, so we didn't get into the lake because it was about 3 weeks after the ice finally melted. But then that Sunday, I ran one full loop of the run course, and then we headed back down to Jersey.
Right. So going into this race, you kind of had the home field advantage of knowing the course a little bit, understanding where everything was going to be, kind of getting your bearings before you even got to the race.
Yeah, it was definitely a big confidence builder getting there. And I mean, race week is always hectic and nervous and everything else, but to have that in your back pocket of, all right, I've done this entire course before. Luckily, it was a 2-lap course, so we did one whole bike lap, we did one whole run lap, we saw the whole swim. It was definitely a confidence builder, knowing that at the beginning of my week when I got up there, didn't have to focus so much on getting your bearings and figuring out, okay, where's this set up? Where's that set up? What's the course over there? I got to just kind of go through the experience, check in, stay in the village and stuff, and not have to worry too much about the course and imagine what it was going to be like. I already knew what it was like because I was already riding it.
Right. Now, we built up to just over 18 hours going into Mont Tremblant. You're also a project manager for a construction industry, and you live in New York City, and it takes you about an hour-ish to get to and from work each way. How important was time management for you going into this race?
It's everything. For me, most of the workouts came after work. Not being able to get into the pool before work, so swims were definitely after. Having a roommate, not being able to ride on the trainer early in the morning, not making sure I'm not waking him up. Sometimes you'd be able to get a run in before work, get up and out the door by like 4:30 to get the run in. But for the most part, everything was after work. Stay at work as long as I could, but knowing, okay, today's a 3-hour day, so I have to be out of work by 6:30, get to the pool or come back, get on the bike, go for the run, cook dinner, go to sleep, repeat.
Right. Now, were you meal prepping every week, or were you just eating on the fly? What does that look like?
So I attempted to meal prep on the weekends and, get everything set, 5 lunches, 5 dinners, so I wouldn't have to worry about anything during the week. And then it always seemed like one thing led to another. A workout went late or had a family event at home, traveling everywhere. It just didn't end up that way. So everything was pack your lunch in the morning at 6:30 before I went and caught the train, and then cooking dinner anywhere from 9 to 10:30 at night, eating and going to bed. So in a perfect world, it would have been meal prep on Saturday or Sunday for the whole week, but unfortunately it just didn't happen.
Right. So as far as your nutrition that you use whenever you were riding on these long rides and on these long runs, what were you using?
I use Base Performance, rocket fuel. So they're salts, hydro, and aminos. I use Carbo Pro on the bike. And then also salted watermelon goose.
Right. Now, on the first time that we hit that 135-mile bike ride, we learned a lot about water bottles and using the right type of water bottles to keep things cold, because things get boiling hot if they're in the sun for so long.
Yeah, I was a rookie, big time in that sense. No insulated bottles. I didn't have a front aero bottle mount. I was using just 3 regular clear water bottles, and had to stop, I think, 3 times on that first 135 ride to refill all 3 of them, because they were practically boiling in 95-degree heat when you're out there for 6-something hours. So definitely learned it on that one. Got smart. We got 2 insulated bottles for the rear seat cages. Got the front hydro mount for the aero bottle for water. And that was just a game changer as far as nutrition on the bike went.
Right. Now, whenever we were doing these longer training days, we had an ideal nutrition plan. What did this consist of?
So as far as the bike goes, tried to keep it around 300 calories an hour, which usually consisted of a goo every about 45 minutes, and then sipping on a bottle of base rocket fuel with Carbo Pro that rounded out that 300 an hour. Tried to go through kind of a concentrated bottle, so to say, of the base and the Carbo Pro every probably 2.5 hours per bottle of that, and supplementing it with the front water bottle just to stay hydrated, and then adding in base salt whenever I took a goo as well. But we stuck to 300, and we're usually pretty spot on with that, just with the scheduling of the goos and how long the concentrated bottles lasted.
Right. Now, whenever you think of the train that we did going into this race, were there any days that you just didn't want to train?
Yeah. A lot of it was more so around the weather. When, I mean, every race that I had this year, except for the last 2 or 3, Mont Tremblant and then sprint and Olympic tries at the end of July, it was raining. And not just raining, but torrential downpour every race day. Just couldn't seem to get a good weather day. So through training and having to go, it's one thing to go through that on race day because you built it up. It's race day. You got the energy, all that. But when you're waking up at 5:30 in the morning on a Sunday because you have a family barbecue to go to in the afternoon, and it's only supposed to rain for 3 hours that day, and that's the only 3 hours you can fit an 18-mile run in, is just absolutely miserable. And really questioned, why exactly am I doing this? Why do I want to do this? But for me, it was usually around weather. If it was nice out, I was usually, I don't want to say excited to get out the door and go train for 6 hours, but I mean, that's where I wanted to be. So
right.
Rain was not a friend for us this year.
And this 18-mile run that you're talking about, we did things a little bit different for the 18-mile run. Tell me about this. How did this go for you?
You talking about our last 18?
Yeah, where you went 20.
Yeah, so it was 18 one-mile repeats, right at our expected race pace, with I want to say like a 3-minute rest in between, something like that, around 3 minutes. So run a mile, wait for 3 minutes, run a mile, wait for 3 minutes, and repeat. So did that, and I couldn't stand still on the side of the road for 3 minutes, so I was walking around and my watch was still going, and ended up on all my so-called rests walking another 2 miles in between all these mile repeats. But that was an interesting day. That's actually not the day it rained. That was a different day. That day it was probably up in the 90s again. At one point, my dad and sister got on their bikes to come look for me because it was so hot and weren't sure where I was going. I was doing 1 mile loops all across my parents' town, always ending back at their house so that I had water and Gatorade and everything else sitting there. But I learned that there's some streets that I grew up right next to that I had never gone down.
Wow. So how did you feel about doing this workout? Was this mentally hard, or was this mentally easier because you had a lot of break and rest in there and got some nutrition? Or how was this for you as doing this for a long run?
So physically, I would say it's definitely easier. But mentally, it was awful mentally, because I just wanted to keep running at that point. And you finish one set and then you're like, all right, I have to stand here and wait for 3 minutes until I get to go run again. So instead of being 18 miles at 7:30s, you're doing a mile at 7:15, and then you're waiting. And then you're doing a mile at 7:15, then you're waiting. So then it's like 10-minute miles when you think about it, with the break plus the mile running, and it just took forever. And mentally to only run that far, but for it to take so long, just like blew my mind, and was one of the hardest things to try to get over through that day. I just wanted to just keep running and get the miles down and pump them all out, but just wasn't possible.
Right, and we kind of talked a little bit after the race about how we probably should have done a 2 or even 3 mile run here and maybe a little bit more rest, because to get that little bit of longevity in there to feel a little bit more fatigued, right?
Yeah, I think that workout would have been best for me at 3 mile repeats, with maybe like, if we had to do a break, it would probably be like a 5-minute break, 4-minute break. But I think because of the way kind of the course lays out and how mentally I was attacking it, I was pretty much doing it in 5K chunks for the whole marathon. So I think if I had that workout of, all right, let's do 3 miles at 21 to 22 minutes, and then you take your break, and then you do 3 miles again, I think it would have been a little more comparable to mentally how we're attacking the marathon during the race.
Right. Now, whenever you actually start going to Mont Tremblant the week of, you're leaving on that Thursday to head up there. How was your travel up there from New York?
So I took a half day on Wednesday from work, headed back down to my parents' house so that we could leave from there. got up on Thursday morning at like 2:45, showered, changed, made sure everything was in the car, and then I think we were out the door by 3:15. I drove the whole way up just because I couldn't be a good passenger. I needed something else to focus on. So I ended up driving the whole way up there. Took us about seven and a half hours. Got in there just after 10:30. But it was smooth sailing. No trouble at the border getting into Canada. So as far as travel days go, didn't feel as long as maybe it could have.
Right. Now, the week of the actual event here, Mont Tremblant, we did the same taper that we did going into the Boston Marathon. How do you feel like this worked for you?
I think it's good. I mean, it worked for Boston. It clearly worked again. I think it just gives me enough of reduced quantity without dropping off too much on some of the intensity. So I still have a nice run in there where I can go all out and get some hard miles in and keep that speed in my legs. But on the bike side, you're backing off and doing a lot of stuff at a lower heart rate and easier gears and shorter durations. And then once we were up there, got a quick little swim in just to loosen up and be in the lake. But I think this is true and tested for me at this point, and something that we'll keep doing moving forward.
Okay. You had Friday completely off, and you used that to check in at the village and all of this fun stuff. How was the check-in process and actually getting to the venue and seeing the Ironman stuff everywhere?
Oh, yeah, Ironman stuff everywhere. Before you even get into town, you're driving down the highway, and there's signs everywhere for parking, pretty much telling you exactly where to drive. But when we got up there Thursday, I actually checked in Thursday. As soon as we got up there, went to the hotel right in the village, got a parking pass so we could park the car. My uncle, aunt, and family were already there, so we went up to their room, dropped some stuff off, and then went straight down to the Ironman village to check in. Check-in process was quick. We got there fairly early on Thursday, so it wasn't too crowded yet. Walked right into the building, signed all of your waivers, got your bracelet, walked through, got the bag, and then it was it. It probably took us 10 minutes, if that, to go through the whole check-in process, and then headed down to the expo and the Ironman store.
Right. Now, you've done the Boston Marathon. You've done the New York City Marathon, obviously, a few times. How does this event measure up into comparison of the hype behind it?
It's a whole different animal. I mean, New York, the check-in process in the expo is at the Javits Center. Nowhere near really the course, not by the start, the finish, nothing like that. Boston, again, it was on a completely different side of Boston than where the finish line was, and the start is obviously 26 miles away there, so you're not by any of that. Maybe it's just Mont Tremblant too, since everything was in a pedestrian walking village right there. You got transition mixed with the expo, mixed with the store. Anywhere you walk, you can always see the finish line, the finish chute already set up. You have the 3 different stages with music and everything else going on. It was surreal walking into it for the first time, getting down there. But then even the whole week, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing and feeling the hype and the energy of everyone, the spectators, the volunteers, and then, of course, all the other athletes there. Couldn't even compare it to any of the other marathons or other races I've done.
Right. What did you think when you first saw the finish line for the first time?
I was anxious, but I mean, I almost felt this sense of like calm. It was first time I really saw it was right after we finished the check-in process, come out that back door, and you're up on this balcony looking directly down at the finish. All the lights are there, the bleachers are set up, everything's ready to go with just one fence blocking about 20 yards before the finish line so no one could go over there. But I just felt like that's when it kicked in that I was finally there and it was finally getting ready to do this. All the work was done, nothing else I could do other than show up to that start line and know that 140.6 miles later I'd be running down that carpet, hands in the air, and crossing that line.
Wow. Now, as far as your nutrition while you're in the village of Mont Tremblant, just there eating and all that, what did this look like for you?
So I packed my own pretty much breakfast every day, brought some bagels, peanut butter jelly, small snacks like that, bananas, so that I didn't have to worry about getting out of the hotel early in the morning to go find something that was in the village. I knew it was set every day, didn't have to worry about it. The other, like Thursday, Friday, as far as dinner went, we just went to local restaurants in the village, kind of ate off the menus, typical bar food, normal restaurant food, so it's nothing like exotic. And then the day before, actually, we all headed over to where my family was staying in like a Airbnb, VRBO type of townhouse, and she cooked pasta and chicken, and so I could have a home-cooked meal that was normal and familiar and wasn't just taking a chance of being out at a restaurant somewhere, and had our last big meal really at like 2 or 3 o'clock on Saturday. So I'd say a lot of what I ate was homemade or brought, with exception to probably 3 or 4 meals before the race.
Okay. Now, whenever you think about dropping your bike off the day before the race, how was this process for you?
So that one was, I guess, I don't want to say an eye-opener, but I'm very type A. And as I learned, most triathletes are all type A. So me and my uncle head down from our hotel like a half hour before bike drop-off starts, and there's already a line of 200 people with their bike lining around transition out into the village. So thinking we're nice and early getting there, we're actually late in type A triathlete language. But I mean, we waited in line, walk up, they took a picture of your bike, and then walked in and found where my rack was. But it was painless. I mean, it was just waiting in the line, walking through and racking the bike.
Right. Then you also had to drop your bags off pretty easy there.
Yeah, I was just walking in the tent. Everything was laid out, tape on the ground, signs up in front of each row. So that was painless. Walk through, drop the bike off, walk through the changing tent to the other side, dropped off the run bag, and that was it.
Okay. Now then, as far as your day before getting in bed and prepping your special needs bags, how was this for you?
So I had laid everything out on Saturday morning for the special needs bags, except for whatever hydration-wise was in the fridge or the freezer. But that was, I mean, we had a checklist that we had made previously, so it's not like I was thinking on the fly what I wanted to put in everything. We knew exactly what it was, packed it in New Jersey before we went up there, so when we got there, it was just, okay, put it in the bag, tie it up, and wait for the morning to hit, throw some of the bottles in, and you're out the door. So pre-planning on that one definitely helped out, and I didn't have to worry about much come race morning.
Right. So you get in bed at what time, you think?
I was back from my parents' house over there by, I want to say, like 5, 6 o'clock. I was in bed with lights off, shades closed at, I want to say, 8:30, close to 9. And then I think I fell asleep at some point in the night. Not sure for how long, but I do remember eyes being closed, and all of a sudden the alarm was going off at, I don't remember, 3:45. The alarm went off. I was awake before the alarm, but the alarm still went off.
Wow. Now, how far away are you actually staying away from transition area?
I had to walk about 5 minutes, maybe even less. It was probably between a quarter mile and a half mile from transition.
Okay. So what's your race day morning ritual like that we had wanted before you actually left your room to go down to transition?
So woke up, immediately tried to get some food in as much as I could force in, since I had zero appetite with the nerves and readiness to get out there. But ate breakfast, bagel, peanut butter, and jelly, had a banana, started with a base rocket fuel in the morning, then showered, got changed, put everything physically inside the special needs bags, got all the bottles out of the freezer, and then that all probably took between a half hour, 45 minutes, I'd say. Walked over to my uncle's room, waited for him and my aunt and cousins to get all ready, and then we were out the door walking probably between 4:45, close to 5, somewhere in there. We're walking out of the hotel and heading down there.
All right, so you get down to transition. What are you doing in transition besides dropping your bags off and airing up your tires? Anything?
So I went straight to the bike, checked the tires, pumped them up to PSI I wanted, right around 100. Then put the bottles on the bike, checked, make sure the computer was zeroed out. Then went over and dropped off the special needs bags. Waited around a little bit, made sure all the family that was there was all counted for. And then we walked over another maybe 5-10 minute walk from transition to the swim start.
Okay, now at this point, did you know that the swim was delayed at all, or when did you find that out?
So we didn't find that out until we got onto the beach at the swim start, was when they made an announcement after a little while that said, at first it was, we're delayed 15 minutes because of fog. Then it was, we're delayed a half hour. Then we're delayed 45 minutes. Then they delayed it an hour, and they set on an hour. So all of that time was luckily not in my wetsuit yet. I was just still in sweatpants and a sweatshirt, but that was just sitting on a bench on the beach and just waiting around. More families started trickling onto the beach as they were there. And then it was just a waiting game till we got to get out there. Still really foggy. It was like the first 15-minute delay, you could see like one buoy into the water. Then as time went on, a half hour, there's like 3 buoys. 45 minutes, you could see like 5. Then it felt like it was starting to lift. They sent the pros out. As soon as the guns went off, the pros went out there. It seemed like the fog just dropped right back down to water level. And at that point, pros were out. So they were sending the women pros out, and everyone else followed right behind.
Wow. Now, whenever you were sitting there in this hour, did you have any water or nutrition that you could continue to fuel with, or what was this like?
Yeah, I kept sipping on base rocket fuel and then just regular water, just to, want to say stay hydrated, but just to make sure I wasn't doing nothing, essentially, that I was still taking in some nutrition. And then right before I got the wetsuit on and walked over to the actual seated start, I had one more goo and then walked over to get ready to start.
Okay, so whenever you're lining up and getting in your corral with everybody else, where are you seating yourself at?
So I went over to the 105 to 110 group, knowing that the goal was 107, 108. I kind of took myself to the back half of that group and kind of just asked some people around me, what are you looking to do? What are you looking to do? And fit myself in there right around some 107, 108 people. Waited there, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops. And then we were all shuffling in toward the start. And then I was off.
Okay. How is your anxiety or nervousness at this point?
Surprisingly, I was still pretty calm. And then we finally got out of the so-called corrals on the beach and went under the big Subaru arch. And then that's where the last time I saw my sisters, my parents, and my aunt and cousins were right over. They had front row seat right there behind the start line. I saw them, and then I made the turn right to look at the water, and I was 4 people in waiting to go. And I think that's when it was like, oh, damn, now it's real. I'm about to jump in the water for over an hour and really get this going. So that's when I think the stomach slightly dropped and the realness of the situation really set in. And every 5 seconds, another person jumped in the water, and I inched myself closer and closer. And all of a sudden, I was at the front, and the buzzer beeped, and I went.
Wow. So what was the mindset going into this race?
So that's tough because there's so many different levels of goals for this race. Some had gotten changed over the last few months and things, but at the end of the day, finish. It's my first full. You've done halves, all that. So A was finish. And then it was, okay, do it by this time. And it was do it by this time. And maybe this time, perfect day would be this time. So it was really tough in the beginning, getting into the water and having that, okay, you want to go this fast, but also you just want to get out of the water and still feel like you just warmed up and you're still feeling fresh. But also you want to push it a little bit because you want to reach that time. So my mind is just like, okay, do I push a little harder? Do I relax? Do I settle? Like, what do I do? What should I do? But once I actually physically got in the water and started swimming, I mean, race me kind of took over, and it was just full steam ahead. Let's do what we came here to do. But I was definitely some conflicting times throughout the race with all these different levels of goals and the competitiveness coming out of, no, you should be going faster. Why aren't you going faster? And then always settling on, don't forget you have a marathon at the end. So settle yourself back down and enjoy it. But yeah, I was all over the place.
Wow. So you get into the swim, you get going. Walk me through the swim course.
So the swim course is pretty much like a rectangle. Go straight out into the lake, make a right turn, go 2 or 3 buoys down, make a right turn, then come straight back in to the shore. You don't start and finish the same area to swim. They're offsets on the same side of the lake. But with the fog that just dropped right after the men went out, you could only see like maybe a buoy in front of you. So you have all these people swimming. You finally see a buoy, and everyone like beelines it toward that buoy. Then you pass it, and you don't see the next one yet. So you have to take a couple strokes, get like 15, 20 seconds past that buoy. Then you see the next one. So you see everyone dart toward that one. And it was pretty much just that of trying to sight and not always being able to see the next buoy, and just trusting yourself that you're semi going in a straight line, and then you finally catch the buoy and realize, okay, that was definitely not straight, but let's get straight now. So that kind of took your mind off of my pace a little bit, because it was like, all right, you just have to find out where you're going. So you can't really think about how fast you're going. Then after you made the first right turn, then the second right turn, it was just a straight line in toward the beach. That's when you were swimming more into the sun. So you could see a little more. The sun started burning some of the fog off, and you could see a couple buoys ahead. And that's when I really was like, okay, now you can, I checked my watch a little bit and tried to figure out exactly where I was. So I picked it up a little bit now that I could see and could sight more than just a buoy. But that was just an interesting experience to be out there in that type of fog with that many people. No race had I ever had that many people and could always see that many people. So that was kind of a interesting moment to have, by seeing all these people but not being able to see the course. So you're hoping everyone else is following the straight line that you think you're on as well. So it was interesting, to say the least. But
wow,
the second half, I definitely kind of turned it up a little bit more than the first half, knowing more where I was going.
Right. Now, as far as the quality of the water here, could you see the bottom?
So you could see the bottom, not the whole lake, but the beginning and the end. You could see it probably when the water was 10 to almost 15 feet deep. You could see the bottom once the sun was out. But I think the I don't want to say weirdest, but the most surprising thing for me was that as you're actually swimming, you're looking over to your left or your right, you could see other people swimming in the water 20, 30 feet away while looking in the water. Like, it was as if you were in a pool in some spots, that you could look through the water and still see people swimming and where they were going. So I think that also gave a little bit of a comfort feeling, as if you were in the pool and everything's not just brown around you. You can actually see people and stuff like that. So I think that was a little calming effect and let me kind of get back into that pool mindset of all those sets and just keep going and turn it up a little bit.
Right. Now, you get done with the swim and you get to T1. How does T1 go for you?
T1 went well. I got out of the water, wetsuit was off, ran to the tent, found my bag very quickly. Luckily, it wasn't too many people in the changing area when I got in there, so I got to get to a seat. I dumped everything out of my bag onto the seat, put on the helmet, glasses, change, whatever. Then I ended up carrying my bike shoes with me until I got out to the actual bike to put them on. Mont, they announced in the meeting that you weren't allowed to leave your shoes clipped in on your bike in transition. They had to be in your T1 bag. So I didn't want to run that whole distance to the bike with the shoes on, so I just ran in socks out there, put them on, grabbed the bike. I actually had a really nice spot in transition for my number. I was like the fourth rack in from bike out, and maybe 10 bikes into that row. So I had a very short distance to run with the bike until I was out at the Mount line.
Wow. Now, as far as T1 goes, your mindset going through T1, you're really focused on each moment doing the most you can and being very efficient with each movement you're doing. And then you get out on the bike ride and How did the first few miles go on the bike ride?
So I was trying to keep it easy, like take it easy and just kind of settle in, realizing, okay, you're about to be sitting on this saddle for 5.5 hours. Get ready. Luckily, there wasn't too many people as far as other riders out when I got out of the swim, so it was not too crowded. And I really just wanted to get into a nice rhythm, shake out the legs a bit from swimming, get into aero, and just start going. Had a couple of, I don't want to say, again, I keep using the word surreal, but moments of catching myself like, this is happening. I'm finally doing this. Passing my family several times out there. It was, I just had to keep pinching myself, saying, okay, you're here, you are doing this. It's finally happening. And just having moments like that just kind of took my mind off of, okay, how fast are you going? And not really worrying about the number as much as how I was feeling, especially in the beginning, and just settling into the bike and get going.
Right. Because we had talked the day before, and one of the things I think I mentioned was, don't forget to look around because it's your first one.
Yes, I definitely looked around. I smiled all day long. Every time I passed my family, the cameras, fans screaming for you, I was just smiling all day long. And I think that was a big part of having a good day out there, was that I truly enjoyed every minute of that day and took in everything I possibly could have taken in.
Right. Now, you got done with the bike ride and had a good cadence and a good heart rate looking back on it. But before we went into this race, we kind of had an idea of the cadence and heart rate and kind of the metric standpoints we wanted to hit along the way. What did this look like for you?
So pretty much our goal was, all right, keep cadence above 85, heart rate below 160. For most part, heart rate wasn't an issue. Maybe spiked a few times going up the big climbs toward the end. But for the most part, cadence was good. Caught myself kind of slowing down a bit and getting a little fatigued at the end of the second lap. So it was nice to have something to focus on and not just trying to look at the speed and saying, okay, I'm going 22 or I'm going 20 or now I'm only going 19, and always staring at that number. I was so focused on, okay, what's your cadence right now? How do you feel? What's your cadence right now? How do you feel? Uphill, downhill, same thing. What's your cadence? How do you feel? So that gave me a nice kind of metric to go off of that wasn't so, okay, you're averaging 20.5, you're averaging 21. Oh, now you're averaging 20. Now you're averaging 19.8. And having those numbers go back and forth. So it was a good thing to focus on that could almost directly relate to how I was feeling, instead of being so numbers driven on you're going this fast or not going this fast.
Right. Now, to kind of head that off, what metrics were you actually looking at on your screen?
So I was looking on the bike computer, had overall, I kept cycling between time and overall distance. And then the top of that screen also had the miles per hour. And then on my watch is where I had heart rate and cadence. So every time I peeked at my watch was when I was saying, okay, you're still in the low 90s cadence. Or if I was getting up toward 100 over 100, okay, let's shift some gears and get back to your sweet spot, and pretty much in the low 90s. So I was playing that game all day of check the watch, look down at the computer. Okay, it's been this long. Where am I? And just kind of feeling out the course that way.
Right. Now, as far as your nutrition plan, did you execute the nutrition plan to the T?
I was very close. I was very close to plan. The goos were, for the bike, pretty much right on the 45 minutes. Every time I took a goo, I took a couple licks of base salt with it. the concentrated rocket fuel and Carbo Pro, I was almost spot on with the first bottle after I got off that last climb and was at mile 50, 56. So that was right on. I ended up stopping at the special needs to get that extra bottle of the rocket fuel and Carbo Pro just in case. Knowing that I was probably going to start fatiguing on the second lap, I wanted to have it rather than not. So that's the only thing out of special needs I grabbed on the bike. But I came in to T2 and was pretty much spot on those two bottles. I refilled the front aero bottle several times with water as the temperature creeped up and I was starting to feel a bit. I just made sure that even if it was half full, get another bottle at any aid station you pass and just always keep topping it off. So it was always cold and I always had it in case I needed it at that point. But between the bottles on the back with the fuel and then just keep refilling that water, I was pretty good and spot on our initial plan throughout the whole bike.
Okay. So the aid stations here, were they well stocked, easy to use? What is this like?
Aid stations were well manned, had anything you needed. I ended up mainly just taking the water bottles from them just to refill the front. Maybe one time I took a Gatorade just to get a different taste than what I was drinking all day. But yeah, super helpful. They had hockey nets at the end of each one to throw your garbage in at the end. So it was seamless at that point and easy fill on the front, toss a bottle and keep on going. Nice.
Now, as far as the quality of the road here, was the quality of the road pretty nice or chip seal? What was this like?
The roads were good. I mean, most of the race is out on a highway and you have the entire northbound lanes for just the bikes. So you have the east side lanes when you're going out and the west side lanes coming back, but it was completely closed to traffic for majority of the course and plenty of room for the bikes. There's some spots toward the climbs that it got a little narrower, but never felt like a car was near or too many bikers in that area, as long as people were staying to the right, which for the most part, they were okay. But the quality of the roads couldn't complain at all.
Great. Now, did you see a lot of flats or mechanicals on the bike course?
I saw a couple, but again, the support crew for the bike course of this race were incredible. There was about maybe 8 mopeds that had full tire setups on the back of each and every one of them, driving out everywhere on the course. And if someone was on the side of the road changing something, they needed it, the bike support was there. They were great, but just me driving by and passing, I maybe only saw 4 flats throughout the whole day.
That's awesome.
Really didn't see much. Yeah. They swept all the roads. It seemed like the day before, 2 days before, not much gravel anywhere. And again, the conditions of the roads were great.
Nice. Now, you stopped at special needs. How was the process at special needs for you?
It was seamless. I mean, a quarter mile before we got there, you had someone radioing numbers in. So luckily in my grouping, I was the only one coming up. So I had 3 volunteers holding my bag wide open by the time I even pulled up there. Stopped, reached in, grabbed the bottle, threw it on the bike, and I was off. So the whole stop and go probably took me 20 seconds, if that. And then I was right on going, getting back up to speed.
Wow. Now, as far as miles, say, 80, 90, and 100 go, how are you doing mentally?
So I guess toward the very end is when I really started to feel it. As I was coming back down the highway and knew all right, you're on your way back into the village. You're almost there. You keep getting these little climbs that on lap 2 feel a little bit bigger than they did on the first lap. But I was pretty okay up until probably mile like 80 is when I really felt, and that's when I started mile counting and kept looking at the watch, kept looking at the computer. Everything's in kilometers on the course, so I was constantly doing math all day, figuring out where I was. But the last 20 to 30 is when I was really counting down. And then when you get to the little out and back for the climb at the end, that's about a 12, 13 mile out and back section. That's with the major climb. That's when I really was like, okay, you have 12 miles to go. You just passed where transition was. Just get through it. I ended up attacking the uphills a little harder and relaxing on the downhills and just kind of grinding it out until I got back and could get into my comfort zone and get my running shoes on and get out for the marathon.
Okay. So these miles where you're counting each and every mile, you're not really in the best places mentally, but you're getting through it and sludging along through it mentally. How hard was this mentally for you? And did we prepare enough and train for this?
Yeah, I'd say we prepared. It wasn't. It was a kind of a weird part of the day because I was ready to be off the bike and excited to kind of get out on the run, and that's where I'm most comfortable is running shoes on and out there. But it was also kind of the toughest part of that course, coming back into the village and then going up on this climb. So I was kind of fighting with, okay, you only have this many miles to go, and then fighting with you don't feel great and you're definitely going a little slower than lap 1, but you're still having a great day. And I was still hovering right within a couple minutes of what the goal time was. And I knew that because I'm calculating everything all day anyway, because there's not much else to think about. So I knew I was coming in a little over the goal of like 5.5, but not by much. So just knowing that, and then that kind of got me through those last climbs at the end. But I wouldn't say I was quite in a dark place, but I was in a fatigued and a drawn out phase of the race. But just knowing that, even feeling like that, I was still very close to what our goal was, definitely lifted things up a bit. And I just knew, okay, just get off the bike, you'll shake out the legs, and then it's you and running, and you're ready for that. So just get to T2 and you'll be set.
Right. Now, the last mile or two of the bike ride, were you doing anything to start preparing to run?
So the last couple miles of the bike is heavily downhill. Those big climbs that just went up for 6 miles going out from the village up this mountain, you then get the benefit of the downhills coming back. So I think I hit 44, maybe 45 on some of the downhills coming back in. So just that alone got the heart rate down. I was resting. I wasn't pedaling as much or as fast. So that prepared me definitely the last 6 miles. And then once you get down off the climb, you make a right turn, and then it's about a half a mile until dismount. So that's when I started getting the feet out of the shoes, standing up, kind of stretching out the legs a bit. And that's when I was getting ready to finally get off the bike. Nice.
So you finally get to T2 in the dismount line and you hand off your bike. How was that feeling?
It was awesome not having to re-rack your own bike. First off, that was the first race I've ever had been able to just give your bike away and have them rack it and just have to worry about running to that tent as fast as you can, get your shoes on and out the other side. So that in itself was a pretty cool experience. But I mean, like I've been saying, I mean, the run is my comfort zone. that's my strength. It's what I've been doing the longest. And I got this massive sense of ease and calm and energy knowing that, okay, everything that's out of your comfort zone is kind of out of the way now. And it's just you, your running shoes, and that's it. 26.2 miles, and you're at the finish line. You can see the finish line when you're going through T2. So it was kind of an energy boost going through T2, to be honest. I knew my family was right there at the other side of the tent at the start of the run that I'd be passing. So it was definitely motivation to get into that tent, change, and to get out on the other side.
Wow. Now you get done with T2, you see your family and all of them, and you keep the energy going. But what was the goal for these first few miles?
The goal was to go slow and hold back, and we wanted to keep them at like 8 minute a mile, something like that. And I kind of duped you on mile 1 because I took a bathroom break, which factored into the time when realistically I was really going like 7-ish, sub 7 a little bit, but masked that with the bathroom break. But then we hit the hills right out of the village at those first few miles. So I think the hills alone really let me kind of step it back and not go all out too soon. Made sure it's conservative and just cruising through the first couple miles, knowing that it's going to be a long time out there. And 26 miles is no short feat. So don't get yourself out of it too soon.
Right. Now, for the run, what do we want to do from a strategy point of view with this?
So mentally, at least, I broke up the race into pretty much, like I said before, 5K chunks. It was pretty much a 5K from the village to the start of the out and back on the towpath. Then it was a 5K to the turnaround on the towpath, the 5K back, and then a little over a 5K back into the village, and then down past the finish line. So the goal was to relax for the first couple miles through the hills. It flattens out once you get to the towpath. That's when you can really make sure your nutrition is set, make sure you're staying hydrated, and then, okay, now let's get into our race pace and just start pumping away some of these miles and put them behind us. So as far as the strategy point of view, I mean, I think I settled in by mile 3 into pretty much our race pace. And at that point, just smiling at everyone who passes. I actually got a comment from a pro that was starting. Well, he was starting his second lap and I was on my first lap, but it was out by mile like 5 or 6. And I felt great, looked strong. And he's like, wow, you're really moving right now. Looks great. Keep it up. And I look back at him. He's got the orange bib with number, I don't even know, it was low 50s, low 40s, knowing it was a pro. So that was a kind of a cool little confidence boost in the beginning of the run that I just looked around. A lot of people are struggling and their form's going out the window, but I legitimately felt good and strong and ready to go. So that was definitely a cool moment. But as far as strategy goes, I mean, I got down near the low 7s, mid 7s, and just started putting miles down.
Right. Now, from miles 1 through 4 or 5, you went to the soda and Red Bull a little bit, and that upset your stomach. Do you feel like that kind of played aspect in hurting your run a little bit?
I don't think it hurt it. I think it just changed. It just changed what I ended up taking at each station. So I just switched to straight water and bananas for the middle, probably 10 miles of the run until I really settled in and that uneasiness from all that. I don't know if it was a carbonation or what it was from, but that kind of subsided by the beginning to middle of the second lap. And then I could, on the last probably 6 or 7 miles, take a little bit more Pepsi and settle everything up. But I don't think it hurt my run performance at all. It just changed the strategy on the fly and had to just adapt to it.
Right. Now, at this point of the day, were you thinking about you might need more sunscreen, or you might be getting sunburnt, or anything like that?
So I had sunscreen get sprayed on me at T2 right before I went out there. So I had some on, and there's not a huge amount of shade on this course. There's a little bit on the out and back in the middle, but I didn't really feel myself burning out there too much. I clearly saw it when the race was over and the next day and even now, but I don't think I really felt it out there. I mean, I was in such a high at that point, taking everything in, that I didn't feel that at all until afterwards.
Okay, so from miles, say, 10 to 13, right before you get to the run special needs, how was this going for you?
So I still felt pretty good at that point. Mentally, it was tough to run past the finish line at like mile 12 and a half, knowing that if you make a left, you're going down the finisher chute, or you make a right and you have 13 and a half more miles to go. That was a tough pill to swallow going past that, but I still felt pretty good. I had just seen my family at mile like 11 and a half, screaming, yelling, cowbells going. So that was obviously a boost, but got past the whole finisher chute part, got special needs, grabbed a bottle of rocket fuel that was still frozen at the time. So it was nice and cold, and drank that in the first half mile, and then knew that at that point, every step was now, I've traveled more than what I have left. Now is a big thing to pass and get on that second lap and know, okay, you're not ever going to run on this part of the course again. You're done with it, and just keep knocking away step after step, mile after mile of that, and know that, okay, you're less than a lap away from that finish line.
Right. Did you have any cramping or GI issues or anything like that?
No. I was very fortunate. No cramps, no nothing like that. I felt pretty good. The upset stomach, like we talked about, but I think that was more just carbonation from the soda. That was kind of a little bit of a shock that I hadn't had all day and just felt a little uneasy. But once that went away, still had no cramps or anything the whole day.
Did you have any blisters forming on your feet or anything?
No blisters. Feet still felt good. Yeah, nothing really hurt on that aspect. Obviously, I'm exhausted and tired, and muscles hurt and are sore already. But as far as like cramping or outside pains go, I didn't feel anything all day.
Okay. Now we'll go ahead and get to the elephant in the room of miles 14 through 20 here.
Yeah.
How are these going?
That was a tough stretch. That didn't feel good. That was the darkest point of the whole day, because at that point in time, I mean, there's people out on the course, but it was just, got to the towpath and you're going out to the turnaround, and I don't know what it was. I really don't know what it was. It was just a very dark place of the day. And normally in a marathon, that's mile 20 to 26. That's the second half of a marathon, is those last 6 miles. But for me, it was right there in the middle, and I just couldn't shake the feeling, and I don't even know how to explain it. It was just a dark place.
What were you thinking about in those?
I was ready to be done. There's that part of the course, there's no real spectators because it's a towpath, so it's only runners and then every aid station. So you're talking, waving, saying hi to some athletes along the way and stuff, but there's not much real noise, and the whole excitement and everything that you have throughout the whole day is kind of subdued back there. And still knowing that you have 12 miles to go, 11 miles to go, 10 to go, and that was just a tough hurdle to get over. But, I mean, I just kept pushing. My pace definitely slowed down at that point. Still never walked, though. Was always running. And then I finally hit mile 20 to 21. I stopped at an aid station, and I told myself, all right, you're going to walk this entire length of the aid station. You're going to drink whatever you can. You're going to make sure it actually goes down. You're not running and trying to drink on the run. Ate a banana, took a goo, took some salt, and then I was like, all right, you just got through that. You made the turnaround. You got less than a 10K to go. Like, let's be done. All the work you put into is at that finish line. Just get to that finish line. You'll see everyone. You'll experience everything. You're about to become an Ironman. Let's just grind it out and let's do it.
So whenever you got to miles 21, 22, 23, what all was going on in your mind through these miles?
I was just totally lost in the moment. Those last 6 miles were, I don't want to say a blur because I remember every moment of it, but the time just felt like it went by in no time. And finally got off that towpath and had probably 3.5 miles to go. You finally see people, and I started negative splitting at mile 21. So I'm getting faster and faster each mile. I'm now back into the mid 7s and feeling good, and people are looking at me, and some of the fans recognize me that I'd already gone through a first lap and were still stunned that I was moving like that and looked that confident and that strong with that point of the race. So then they were yelling even louder, and went and didn't even feel those hills coming back in. Got back to the village and had a little over a mile to go. And I passed over a mat, and there's this big screen, and all of a sudden I hear the voices of my sisters, my cousin, brother-in-law, sister's boyfriend, all of them screaming, yelling, cowbells. And I look up, and it's their faces on the screen yelling at me for 5 seconds. And that got me. I was emotional, got caught up in the moment, and knew I had 1 mile until I could officially cross that line. I was going across and become an Ironman that I had worked for so long. And my whole family was there lining the entire finish line. And it was just a runner's high times 50, just totally caught up in the moment and enjoyed every second of it.
So you take that left versus right going on to the second loop, and you go to the finish line. How does this go?
So when I come into the village, you have just under half a mile to go, or come into the village, half a mile to go. You're coming down. It's all downhill, and there's no one. I look around. There's one guy ahead of me who's also in my age group. So I'm thinking, with the time I'm running, I'm not near the podium. I don't have to worry about it. So I kind of backed off and slowed up so that I could have that red carpet and that finish line experience all to myself. So I slowed down a bit as we're going downhill, he entered the chute first. He had his moment. And as I enter the chute, first I see my aunt. She's crying already. Then I go a couple steps further. I see my sister. She's crying already. Keep going a little further. See my sister's boyfriend. High five. See my cousins. See my brother-in-law. See my other sister. And then at that point, I'm right at the chute, walking up the finisher line, hands in the air, and just smile ear to ear and just taking in everything. And hearing Mike Riley yell, "Richie Szeliga, you are an Ironman," was just something I will never forget in my life. Will never not remember that feeling and hear those words and just keep repeating those over and over. Was just something that I will never forget.
Wow. So how would you describe this finish line? I mean, you've done New York City, Boston, all these other races and all of that, but how does this compare to those finish lines?
This isn't even close. I mean, this is just on its own level of excitement, of support, of energy. Just, I don't even know how to explain it. And not only to be able to share that with all these people screaming and Mike Riley there, but to be able to see my family, literally that whole last 500 feet individually, be able to see them going every step along the whole chute and then cross the line, and then see my sister and then my aunt were on the other side of the line, everyone taking pictures and videos and screaming. It was just a surreal moment. And I never experienced that in Boston or New York or any of the halves. Just didn't have that type of intensity like this did.
Wow. So after you cross the finish line, you get the medal, t-shirt, cap, whatever. What else do you do after you cross the finish line?
So I went over into the finisher's tent. I had a beer and a chocolate milk. Got some pictures taken with the medal in front of the banner and stuff. And then my family walked over to the edge. And that's when I actually got to physically see them and talk to them really for the first time. And funny, I didn't notice it, but my aunt mentioned it later. She's like, when we're all there at the line waiting for you to finish, everyone had the sunglasses off. We're taking pictures, and all of a sudden, as soon as I crossed, they all were coming around to meet me. Everyone's sunglasses are down, wiping tears away. So everyone was crying at that point, but got to be with them, take pictures with everyone, and then hung out for a little bit. And that was actually right when my uncle and my uncle's friend were coming around to start their lap 2. So I got to walk right over 100 feet away and then see them pass as they were going out for lap 2. So that was really cool to be able to see them out there.
Nice. So you didn't go out and pace them for their second loop?
No, I did not.
Well,
I got my bike and my gear bags while I was still pretty quiet over there. Went back to the hotel to shower. Had a nice little Prosecco toast with the family, and then headed back down to the finish to watch them cross the line.
Nice. So you went back and saw the midnight finishers?
Yeah. So first we went down and saw my uncle's friend cross at just under 13.5. My uncle crossed at like 13:50. Then we walked back up to the hotel with them. I had something to eat real quick, and then hung out with my uncle, and then we went back down. And it's not a midnight finish since we were delayed by the fog. It was a 1 a.m. finish. So walked back down there and got to witness just that experience in itself was also just never before seen. I don't think, to be honest, I've ever been standing at the side of a finish line for the last person of the day. In any race, I don't think I've ever been there. I was always over at either the awards or packing up, getting ready to leave, if not had already been on the way out. But to be there and see that level of excitement and energy and everyone for going down to the last finisher was just awesome. Awesome to see, awesome to be a part of, and to see the winner, Cody Beals, out there handing out the finishers' medals to the last people crossing the line was also a very cool thing to see.
Yeah, that's true sportsmanship. It really is. Do you remember any of the finishers that finished in the last 2 minutes?
Yes. One finisher who had failed to complete his full, I think 6, maybe 7 previous times between Lake Placid and Mont a couple times. He came in with, I want to say, 5, maybe 10 minutes to spare, and Mike Riley finally got to call him an Ironman. That whole, the lead up by Mike Riley telling the story to everyone there at the finish line, and then to see him come down the chute and cross the line was just an awesome thing to see.
How was the crowd at that point?
The crowd was going crazy. And Mike Riley helped with that because he told the whole story. And Mike Riley was at every single one of those where this guy just missed it by minutes, whatever it was. And it was always down to the wire at the mall. And this one, he finally got to say it, and the crowd was just going absolutely crazy.
Wow, I bet a lot of tears were in the audience.
Oh, there was a lot of tears everywhere. A lot of tears everywhere.
Wow. So, looking back on your experience at Mont Tremblant, how was everything?
It was incredible. It was so much more than I think I ever expected it to be. I'm so incredibly grateful that I'm able to do this, but I'm also grateful to myself that I allowed myself to enjoy it. Because you could ask my family, my friends, every other race that I do, I don't think you'll ever see me really, truly smile during a race. I get to the start line with a goal, and that's to go as fast as I can. Always have a number in my mind, and I push myself to get to that number or faster, whatever it is. And sometimes at Boston, I really took in the crowd and the energy, and New York as well at certain spots. But this race, I truly took in the experience from the very start until well after I crossed that line. And I'm just so glad I did, because it makes for so much better memories knowing that I smile, I engage with my family, with all the other fans, with other athletes, and I just allowed myself to enjoy the whole day, not just enjoy the last 10 seconds at the finish line.
Right. Now, what advice would you give someone that's doing this race next year that has similar experience to you, just not the first time like you?
I think it really just goes into training. I mean, if you're not ready for hills and you're just not prepared and just don't put the work in, it's gonna eat you up, and it's gonna expose your consistency in each aspect of the race. So if you're not putting in the time, if you're not putting in the elevation gains, you're gonna feel it, and the course is gonna expose you. But I knew I'd go in there feeling confident, but I never would have guessed at how ready I was to finally get out there and do this. And you put the time in you get the right type of training, and it can be a really good day.
Right. I know on the race plan I sent you before the race, it actually had the number of hours you biked, the number of hours you ran and swam. I mean, what did that do for your confidence going into this race?
Well, first it was an eye opener to know how little social life I've had for the last 8 months. That alone, I was very, very surprised about. I mean, I think what was the calculation that came it up to?
It was a lot.
It was just so much. And 340 something hours of training, just realizing how I can fit that in with 50 plus hour work weeks. Luckily, I found out I do still have friends at the end of this. They're not all gone, even though I haven't seen some of them in 8 months. Just unreal, and really learned a lot about myself and what I can do, especially the level of consistency and the hours put into this, that I really can do a lot once I put my mind to something.
That's awesome. Now, how could Ironman have made your experience at this race even better than what it was?
To be completely honest, I don't know if they could have done anything better. Unless they can burn the fog in the morning and not have a delay, which they did joke about at the brunch the next day, that they're going to get the snow blowers from the mountain down on the lakeside in the morning and just blow all that fog out there. But to be honest, I mean, the village experience, the expo, the meetings, the dinner, the brunch, everything was more than I ever could have imagined or thought I wanted at that point. So it was an amazingly run race, amazing volunteers all over the course all day. And I truly don't think I would have changed a thing.
And we didn't even talk about the athlete banquet.
Yeah. So we went to the banquet on Friday night. The Mike Riley did all the announcements, did introductions, showed videos, introduced people. And then we went into the pre-race meeting, walked everyone through all of Saturday, and then what Sunday was going to be, course changes, everything like that. But that was a cool experience. And I went in that with wide eyes, trying to take it all in, and still had a little bit of that nervous energy, and that was cool.
Wow. So we covered a lot. Do you have anything else you want to add about the race?
No, I think we covered the whole thing.
Nice. So I know you're doing Atlantic City next, and you'll be down there racing that up. That was a judgment call since Mont Tremblant.
Yeah, that was you just put 8 months of workouts in, and let's not have one race show the benefits of that. So why not take an hour and a half drive to South Jersey and do a flat course, not be in mountains. So I did the race last year, so I know the course, I know what I'm getting into, and gonna, recovering right now, get a couple weeks of speed stuff in, and then try to attack that race and see if I can get a spot on that podium.
Nice. So how can athletes follow you?
I'm on Facebook as Richie Szeliga, and then over on Instagram as Whittle-Witchy.
Nice. So being that I already know what your definition of a perfect race is from the previous episode we did, to wrap this one up, if you could put together an ideal triathlon course to include weather, temperatures, wind, rain if you wanted, or sleet, completely up to you, what would you want in a race?
Weather-wise, I would say upper 60s, low 70s, partly cloudy is my ideal. Now, my luck, that never happens, so I'll get monsoons, but that would be ideal. As far as course goes, I loved the freshwater lake. That was an awesome swim. Maybe could have done without some mountains on the bike and stuck to more of some flat sections with rollers that you can kind of pick up some speed on. And then, I mean, the run's my place to be. So the harder, the better. Start dropping people like flies. But I don't know. I mean, is there such thing as the perfect course in the perfect conditions?
Boston this year, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 30 degrees in a monsoon is definitely qualified as perfect.
Nice. So if you had a microphone and you were able to tell every single athlete or endurance athlete or triathlete one message and they would follow that one message, what would that message be?
I actually steal this message from a quote from Steve Prefontaine of, I mean, to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice a gift. And I believe that in running, in triathlons, in life, in everything. I mean, everyone has this gift and is working toward this common goal. So, I mean, give it everything. Don't want the end goal, but not ready to put the work in. Because you've been given this gift of not just physical ability, but your mental ability to be able to push through these things and even just to sign up for something like this, you're in a special kind of person. And to go through and not have the social life maybe that you want, or sacrifice so many things for something that you want that only you can control. I mean, that to me is the biggest gift, and to not so-called waste it and to truly experience it and follow through.
Wow. So with that said, are you going to do another full?
Absolutely. I have to really sit down and look at what the next year is going to produce work-wise, family-wise, maybe have a social life again. Who knows? But I got nothing on the schedule right now, but there will absolutely be more fulls in the future.
Well, that's good. Now, that's all I have. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I think I'm good.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on here again. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, you can definitely share this out with your family. I think they'll definitely enjoy hearing your voice about this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great. Well, you have a nice night, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Thanks for tuning in today.
Thanks, sir.
I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.